Hi guys, how you doing? My name's Cam and welcome to AskMeI'mBipolar.com. So for those of you who follow me on social media, you'll know that I class myself as an avid reader. I think that's the right term. I love books. I always have my entire life, and I think that books will literally open up your mind to the world. So when I was 3, my mum signed me up to the local library, and little did she know she'd be coming back multiple times a week because I'd read the book so fast. Now, it started off with things like Meg and Mog, Roald Dahl, Rudyard Kipling, amazing children's stories like that. As I got a little bit older, I started reading things like Enid Blyton, The Faraway Tree, The Secret Seven, The Famous Five. Then I started reading things like the Hardy Boys series, Nancy Drew. I absolutely loved my sort of like sleuth detective novels. In my teens, I started reading more mental health related things. So it started with the classics like Sylvia Plath's The Bell Jar. Elizabeth Wurtzel did a book called Prozac Nation, and Susanna Kayson's Girl Interrupted, all of which I believe have been turned into films since. But I loved reading about mental health. Now, I don't know whether this is because I found it was something I could relate to, or whether it's fascinated me how the mind works. As I hit adulthood, I started reading other things other than the standard novels, so things like Paradise Lost, The Divine Comedy, poetry, prose. I just love reading. My favourite authors were Anne Rice. You must have heard of her from the Vampire Chronicles. They were her most famous books. Things like Christian Jacques. He does a fantastic series about Egypt, ancient Egypt, and sort of Ramses II era. Con Eagledon, Roman Empire, sort of like based books. Absolutely fantastic stuff. I think I love books that take me away to distant, faraway places with that rich detail. And I love empire stuff. I love things like Rome, Antioch, Thebes, Athens, all this kind of stuff. I mean, to be fair, I then went on and did a degree in ancient history, so, that's probably where that love came from. When I was doing my degree, I started reading classical authors, so things like Homer, Thucydides, Sallust, Suetonius, Plutarch, even Augustus himself, and I absolutely loved it. One of my dreams or my life goals is when I buy my own house, I want a library room. I want a room that's just covered in shelves, full of all my favourite books, and on the walls I'm going to have quotes from my favourite books or sort of interpreted scenes from my favourite books. It will happen one day. I just need to buy the house first, but I can picture it in my head. I would love that. I would just sit in there. There'd be beanbags on the floor so you could just sit and read. Oh, sounds like heaven. So over the past few years, alongside from reading things like the Lord of the Rings series, the Game of Thrones series, and I'm going to admit here that I have read the Twilight series and absolutely loved it, even though my favourite types of vampires are definitely Anne Rice vampires and not sparkly ones. But I've started reading more spiritual things, more self-help books, I guess you call them, or things like awareness books, life logic books, and sort of psychology style books. So I've read a lot about religion, human psychology. I've enjoyed things like Richard Dawkins' sort of view on life. And one book I'm going to mention here is called The Lucifer Effect, talking about psychology. A woman I used to work with put me onto this book, and it's absolutely brilliant. It's a guy called Zimbardo, and he did the Stanford Prison Experiment, if you've ever heard about that. He was continuing sort of the work of Milgram before him, and it's all about sort of evilness. And, are we innately evil? How does evil come about? What makes us evil? What can push us to do evil things? It's it's just really, really fascinating. So if you get a chance, have a read of that book, definitely. Anyway, what I've found is reading these books, these sort of emotion, mind, psychology, kind of positivity, spirituality, whatever you want to call it, has actually had a really positive effect on me. It's opened up my mind. It's made me understand more about me. It's made me understand more about my relationship with myself, my relationship with the world around me. And I would go so far as to say it's making me a happier and a healthier person. So as far as mental health goes, which is obviously what I want to talk about in this video, I really, really, really rate reading as a way to help your mental health. In 2009, there was a study done in the University of Sussex about reading, and it showed that it took about 6 minutes of reading a good book to actually start to de-stress your body, chemically, physically, muscle tension, heart rate, etc. So when I'm saying that reading is a really good therapy for mental health, for stress, for anxiety, for depression, there are actually studies to back this up. You may have heard of something called bibliotherapy. Now that is literally the prescribing of books as a remedy for something, usually for mental stress. Now, it's something that I've looked into, and it's something that's quite interesting. I'm going to put some links down underneath this video so you can have a read of a few different articles on this. But I absolutely agree with it. It can change everything. Like, reading a book can change everything. It can change the way you think, it can open your mind, it can give you a deeper understanding, it can bring you enlightening moments that you never thought you'd have. It can give you sort of like, you know, it awakens something inside you that you didn't know before. You learn is the main thing. You learn from it. You learn about you learn about everybody else, you learn about the world, the environment, you learn about life, energy, everything. So that's why I'm so passionate about books, because in a lot of ways, reading has changed my life. Literally changed my life. Reading has saved my life in some cases, if I'm perfectly honest. So I started with the classics, Feel the Fear and Do It Anyway, Dale Carnegie's How to Win Friends and Influence People, and this little gem here, The Power of Now. And one book that I really want to talk about actually is called The Celestine Prophecy. So if you've not read it, grab a copy. It's absolutely brilliant. And so The Celestine Prophecy talks about positive energy and the relationship of energy around the world. So again, for those of you who follow me on social media, you'll know that one of the things that I believe is that I'm not a religious person. I don't believe in man-made religion, but I do believe in energy. And I believe that energy cannot be destroyed, it can only be transferred. Now, this is just science, okay? And one of the things this book talks about in the Celestine Prophecy is how the energy that makes us up relates to the energy of things around us. Now, I don't know if you've ever seen, what's it called? The Secret. So there's a film called The Secret, and it's all about positive thinking, basically. And there's a phrase that they use called thoughts become things. So that is something that I absolutely believe in. It's worked for me all my life. Thoughts become things. If you think really negative and downward things, then that is kind of how you view the world and how the world brings the energy back to you. You put out negative energy and you will receive negative energy. Same with positivity. You put out positive energy and you will attract positive energy. So like, that's kind of the theory behind it. I mean, I will do a video at some point and tell you more about things like that if you want to hear it. But The Celestine Prophecy, absolutely brilliant book. It sounds like it would be a religious book, but it's not, I promise you. It's just, you have to read it. The Celestine Prophecy is written as a story, but this book is what I'm reading at the moment, and it's called The Untethered Soul. Now, it's interesting, but it's really hard for me to read through. The way the text is written and the format of the text, I'm struggling to sort of like plough my way through it. But the content is actually very good. So again, another thing to read, but with this one, it's going to take a bit more effort to read it. So I'm just going to show you a bunch of books now, of things that I tend to read. So we've got Simon Scarrow, When the Eagle Hunts, a bit of ancient Rome. Dawkins, Magic of Reality, great book. All the classics, bit of Suetonius, that's another copy of Suetonius. Livy, Rise of Rome. Harry Sidebottom, Warrior of Rome. As you can tell, I really like my Rome books. Robert Harris, Imperium, another Rome book. I didn't look at what I picked up here in this selection, by the way. Sword of Storms, Game of Thrones books. Excellent stuff. And I'm not being funny, if you watch Game of Thrones, the books and the series don't align very well. There's things that happen in the books that are completely different in the series. Like, one of the earliest things I noticed is literally, there's a character in the book that sort of meets Daenerys, and in the series, it's a completely different person. So yeah, I'd say read the series. If you haven't read the book series, read the book series. Much better. Classics, Interview with a Vampire, Anne Rice. Gotta have that one on there. Emily Colash, just checking. That was the OCD one I talked about. I started reading Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde, or The Strange Case of Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde. I quite like my classic novels. That's an old Roman 1 Sallust as well. So I haven't got all my books with me here because I've still got about 10 boxes of books at my mum's house in the loft somewhere. But I want to put across a simple message. Read! Simple as that. My message is read. Read everything. You know, find things that interest you and read, because it's one of the ways you can get away from the world. Don't spend all your time staring at a screen, because it's not the same. Sometimes you need to relax your brain. You need to take your brain away from things. And I've found that reading can really help me control my anxiety, and in some ways can help me control my depression. It takes my head to another place, and that is invaluable. If you sit there staring at a screen all day, you're not going to get the same effect as you are from just reading, because when you're reading, your brain is processing things in a different way. So if you could take anything away from this video, go pick up a book. Find something you're interested in. Obviously, I like things like ancient worlds, but like anything that you like, detective novels, I don't know, whatever it may be, go find any book and have a read. Just give yourself 30 minutes a day. Not even that, every 2 days, you'll get a book, and if you find the right book, you won't want to put it down. I mean, if you need a screen, use a Kindle. I can't read off Kindles personally because my brain doesn't like reading off a screen, but, I prefer the actual book. Nothing is like a book to me. But please, 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 do one thing for me and pick up a book and read. Because it will make a massive difference to your life if you just allow a little time for that. If you want any book recommendations, feel free to write it in the comments. I have millions of ideas when it comes to things like that. And thank you for watching this video. I hope that you found it a little bit informative, and if anything, it motivates you to go and pick up a book. As always, click the subscribe button below. If you're on social media, give us a like and a share on Facebook, on Twitter, and have a look at the website askmeimbipolar.com.